great looking morning. Fog's just rolling down the valley. Never been in this country before, so it's all new to us. Going blind as usual. But we've actually heard a distant roar way up the back there. Some wonderful looking country. Alrighty, we'll see what we can do.
What a disappointment that was. Just crashing our way out in the evening, beautiful evening, in the big Westland country, and just got to this ferny stuff. Yuck. Gave a bit of a roar just for fun, really. Next thing, just over here, just come a little bit further. Next thing we're here, crikey, we're caught. We're just a little bit too far, just back there a little bit and down in the fern, and just see the antlers coming. Wind drifts going straight to him. You see him come there, he stops, looks around a little bit, next thing, boof, and he's gone. Well, now that's a beautiful stag. It's a beautiful example of a red. Monarch of the Glen stuff. Oh well, that's the way it goes.
Oh well, it's that time of year again. Stags are starting to get vocal. All the hunters out there are itching at the bit, busting to get into the hills at the first available moment. Meanwhile, the wives are all going, oh no, here we go again. And of course, the first thing you have to do is decide where you're going to head. Now, if you've got a private land block to go on, you're already sorted, you're all set to go. But if you're like us, we just like to stick to the public land, and so no doubt you'll spend hours poring over maps and trying to decide on the best spot. Unfortunately, we haven't found it, but you can be sure if we do find it, we won't tell you where it is. Now, we like the challenge sort of going into new areas and that, so we're going to actually spend a couple of days here in the Ureweras, have a bit of a scout around here, then we're going to head south into the big country of Fiordland and Westland and all that sort of area, see how we get on down there.
During this DVD, we're going to be mainly focusing on using the still camera. The great thing about using the camera is we get to observe what would happen after we'd normally shoot the stag, and most of us would shoot it at the first instance. The other thing is you'd be surprised how close some of these stags will come if they're given half a chance. Anyway, we've got no protection out there, so we might get a tine through the belly, but it's worth the risk.
Urewera National Park is the largest in the North Island, covering an area of over 200,000 hectares, which also makes it the fourth largest in New Zealand. She's pretty rugged country and just about completely bush-clad with little or no open tops. The weather can change fast. What can start out as a beautiful morning can turn to absolute crap in no time at all, so it pays to go prepared.
Unfortunately, the track's a bit smashed from the snow damage, and it can be a bit hard to find, and I wouldn't want to do it at night actually. But a good idea is to just roar your way along these tracks. We often roar a stag to the track, and it's a good opportunity to get your camera out if you hear one, and just get ready and hope he comes in. But yeah, she's a bit of a mess. Lucky they got orange markers.
Boo! We'll often yell at a deer when it takes off, and hopefully it'll stop and look back. Of course, it doesn't always work, but it's worth a try.
Boo!
Try not to go over there. Just get these little bits of scrub, just little bits like that. Trying to get a rest. Beautiful creature though, eh?
Anyway, we'll keep moving. Really interesting country, this high altitude stuff. Full of mosses and lichens and mealy grubs and all sorts of interesting little things growing all over the place. Doesn't get much sunlight, just cold and damp all the time. Sort of a grassy sort of stuff on the ground, and just that forbidden forest look.
If you're high up when the fog rolls in, you can end up with nearly no visibility, so it's a good idea to carry a compass or GPS. People get lost in this country all the time. Well, we finally made it to the highest point in the park, and we came up here for the view, and I tell you what, when that cloud lifts and clears, boys, it's spectacular. Well worth the effort. Anyway, she's bitterly cold up here, southerly blowing. Trig's right here, the hut's just down there, so let's go and get a hot coffee. Generally the roar starts about the end of March, running through till the last week of April, with the best time being around the 7th to the 10th. Of course there are always exceptions to the norm, like the time we heard one on the 11th of March, or when Father had one going on the 4th of June. Usually this will happen when a hind gets missed early on, and then comes on heat later in the season. The bush was fairly thick in this area with a lot of fern and pepperwood, and then with the added storm damage it made the going quite difficult and slow. When we first heard this stag he kept moving away, but once we closed the gap to within 50 metres or so, he decided to come back and check us out. Unfortunately the fern was so deep you could hardly see him over the top of it. The only advantage with this is that you've got plenty of cover to hide in. One thing that can help you in this type of country is the fact that you'll hear him coming from quite a distance away. It's important to keep roaring at him so he knows where to head. The last thing you want is for him to go past you where he could pick up your scent. As long as you've got the wind right, he may come really close. This is when it gets really exciting, and the hardest part now is trying to control the nerves and hoping he doesn't hear your heart thumping 3 times louder than normal. This guy came to within 3 metres of the camera. Now that's what I'm talking about. The next couple of days was full on continuous rain, and there's not a lot you can do when you're using a camera except wait it out. If you're using a rifle, of course you can still head out, although it's not the most pleasant, and you certainly don't want to go crossing any streams once that water starts rising. forecast looking good for the next week or so, it was time to head south. Time for a cruise on the Inter-Islander. It's always good to get that 3 hours of rest and relaxation to revitalise before the big drive south. It's a clear autumn day, the air is crisp and clean with a touch of frost. The birds are twittering and a stag's roaring just over the hill. It doesn't get much better than this, except of course maybe if there were 2 stags roaring just over the hill.
We left the track about 20 minutes ago and we've come in from the road about 40 minutes. And it's just getting through some heavy crown fern here, and it's opening up nicely just out here. There's a distant stag roaring just over the top of the ridge there, so that's really quite promising. The weather's been beautiful down here at Fiordland for a couple of weeks now. It seems to still go on and on. It must be that drought summer we've been having. Anyway, let's check out this bit of beautiful bush.
Here's a prime example of how you can't always tell the size of a beast by the sound of his voice. This guy sounded like he's a big master stag with his deep throaty roar, and yet he turned out to be a very average fellow. But what a fantastic animal all the same. You'll notice this guy had one antler broken off halfway up, which is almost certainly from a fight. We don't often see stags with broken antlers. Broken tines sometimes, but not broken beams. We can only assume the other guy was the bigger of the two and no doubt ended up with the hind. There was a steep drop-off just in front of us, so we decided to move location and try and find a spot where the stag could climb the slope and hopefully come in closer. We always try to get them in as close as possible for the camera. this was one of those unfortunate situations. We couldn't get down and he couldn't get up. It's possible he may have come really close had the country been more negotiable. The stag was cooperative, but you can only hold their attention for so long. If you lose his interest, it's hard to get it back. And once they start moving away, they become suspicious, and it's harder still to turn them back.
Well, that was a bummer. Keen stag, and we weren't expecting it. Well, you don't know what the country's like when you turn up at it, you know, when you're going for a beast, and there's a bluff sort of thing running all the way along here, and he can't get up, and he wouldn't come any closer to the edge so we could get some shots. So it's just one of those tricky situations where you really can't do anything and just hope. But get a stick. I don't know if you can follow this, but and you'll see it's a bit of a bluff, but we'll just carry on anyway. But I'll just finish with throwing that over.
Something we don't see very often is a couple of stags fighting. These guys have hit with such force that it's literally snapped one of them off. You can actually see the splits up the side there. Now that stuff's really solid, so I'm telling you, you've got a lot of force to break that off. But that is so sharp, someone could cut themselves on that. So we won't leave it out in the open, we'll stick it back in there. An important thing to remember if you're not already familiar with hunting down south, do not underestimate the sheer determination of the sandfly. They are relentless, bloodthirsty and intent on making your life miserable. Do not forget the insect repellent. Whenever we head into a new area, it's pretty much just trial and error and hope for the best. Of course, if something's already roaring, you can pretty much head straight for it, as long as the wind's okay.
First bit of deer poo. See no deer poo, not a single piece of deer poo for the last hour. Finally, but it's about 2 months old.
But if it's all quiet, then you've firstly got to discover if there's any deer in the area. So we'll often move quite quickly looking for sign, which includes marks on the ground, droppings and fresh rubbings. If there's no sign, then we don't hang around.
It's taken several hours of walking through lovely bush, nice open bush, but deadly silence. And now we've come just over a little valley. There's a couple of stags in there going off their nut. There's going to be a fight soon. There will be blood. I might just give a roar and just let them know that there's some other strangers in town. I love violence when it comes to stags. So we'll duck down and amongst it and find ourselves a tree to hide behind.
Because we usually try and roar the stags in, we generally don't see many hinds during the roar, but sometimes when a stag won't come we have to sneak in. And because we tend to be focused on the stag, it's easy to miss a hind on the lookout off to the side.
Is there a person up there?
When a hind, or stag for that matter, starts barking, the idea is to keep roaring at him and try and confuse the stag, and often he'll continue roaring. If you can keep him occupied long enough, you may be able to sneak in for a look. At this time of year, the stags have got the love drug running through their veins, and we all know what that's like, so they'll sometimes get preoccupied and lose a bit of their usual caution. You can use this to your advantage, but don't take too long, because once suspicion is in the air, he'll soon move on. We knew there was another stag higher up, so we continued climbing. It was fairly steep in places, giving the lungs a good workout, and really flushing the blood through the veins. And by the looks of things, the bladder's getting a good flushing too. Looks like he's having a bit of trouble up there. Probably a good idea once you get over 45 to get that prostate checked. Can really speed things up a bit. Oh no, sorry, false alarm. He's just checking the photos.
Just missed him, eh, on a bit of hard work, wasn't it? Just a small stag, but he's got a hind. There's another one higher up here somewhere. Oh, just got closer to him and not that good, you know, like trying to shoot from long range. Sounds like a war zone, a bit of echoing around. I think we'll carry on up.
Further up the slope we came onto the second stag, which had been annoying the other fellow, in turn causing all the commotion we'd heard all morning. You'll You'll often find in areas of low deer numbers that while you may have to cover a lot of country to find them, when you do there could be 2 or 3 stags in a cluster, because they'll travel a long way to find a hind in season, especially when there's not many about. When roaring a stag in, the biggest obstacle is the wind, always the wind. Even on the calmest day it can turn on you, rendering a hard day's stalking shattered in a split second. Fortunately today was absolutely perfect, just a slight downdraft, couldn't be better really. If you're using a camera and you've already got some great shots, it's sometimes worth taking a risk and trying to get even closer. Usually they'll run, but sometimes if they can't quite make you out, you might be surprised how close you'll get, especially if there's a bit of cover.
No. That was great fun. I don't know if you guys could see him, but I thought I'd risk poking my head over the moss ball. Little fella, eh? Sweet though, beautiful. Beautiful addition to our beautiful forests. Whew. 11:45, nearly lunchtime, which means Whitaker's raisin slab. Ciao for now. Extract my boot. Just mooching along and we suddenly get that unmistakable stench of stag. Beautiful smell. He's been lying here, that's why we got that scent coming up. But sometimes they get their antlers in and they'll be raking it up a bit and, you know, getting his head down, rolling around in it, urinating in it. Really gets that odour going. He's in a prime position here. He's right sort of in a saddle. He can see a long way, it's nice open bush. All mossy, lovely, green, beautiful spot.
This young stag had actually roared a couple of times early this morning from quite a distance away, but then went quiet and never made another sound, which quite often happens. After just heading in the general direction, we did actually get to see him. He turned out to be only a little bit more than a spiker. Sultanas. I'm quite handy having the vehicle at the door. And the other good thing about the vehicle at the door, you can get one of these plug-in little fluorescent lights and slap it into the cigarette lighter. Well, let's hope tomorrow turns out as good as today. Pretty good day today.
Yeah, it was good.
Nice outside though now, isn't it? Starry.
Oh,
Beautiful. Might be our first frost.
it looks like, yeah, it looks like a beautiful night.
You got milk?
No, I'll probably be fine. I mean, this is sort of Fiordland, isn't it? The edge of Fiordland.
Yeah, it's still Fiordland.
And so, you expect it to be raining kind of nearly every day. So it's really very, very lucky.
We're going to head into a little hidden valley, that we saw today.
Yeah, just hope it holds something,
Yeah, it looks quite good.
You just got to take pot luck, when you're not sure if there's anything there. Could be a waste of time, or it could be really good.
There's a little stick there off the sultanas. Put on the side. Yeah, a bit of roughage, but it's alright.
Spectacular valley, isn't it? This is the Grebe Valley, the home of the crested grebe. Very few, if any, remain in the wild in Fiordland now. But it's not the grebe we're after. We're after the mighty red stag. And there's very few of those about here at the moment too. Almost an endangered species. But it's a beautiful day. It's calm for a change and it's very cool. So we'll do some wild exploring and see what we come across. But we will keep our eye open for the crested grebe.
We'd heard there was potential in the area for some better antler growth, so Father decided to take the rifle for a walk in case the opportunity arose for a decent head and a bit of fresh meat.
Sort of see a game trail running through this great country. Sort of low country, swampy, little bit of swamp, but you see little old game trails and the odd mark through here. Quite interesting, quite a lot of mud splattered on all the foliage.
Back in the 60s and 70s there were large numbers of deer roaming these hills, and when you read some of the old stories you realise they must have seen some incredible sights back then. It's a different story today though. After 30 odd years of hard out commercial and recreational hunting, numbers are only a fraction of what they used to be. With the use of helicopters on the scene and so much open tops and wide river flats, deer can be knocked down to low levels really fast, so often you have to cover a fair bit of country on foot before hearing a roar. But when you do, it makes it all worthwhile.
One of the obstacles of Fiordland. Here we are, we've tramped across some nice low country in there. We've got a don't like to interrupt, chainsaw stag going up there, and then we hit a water hazard. Personally I like to look for a log, but I think it has to be one of the world's longest logs to climb across if there's going to be one here.
I think we might be getting wet feet.
The whole carcass might get wet, I think. a blow, shall I?
Yeah, give a blow. It's quite late in the morning, so you don't know whether there's any chance of ruling him out, but you've got to give it a try, don't you? And actually, it sounds as if he's actually getting a bit lower.
Yeah, does it sound low?
These sandflies are just murder. I can see him. I can see his antlers.
This is the sort of thing you dream about, having a master stag come out in the open in broad daylight. You always hope it'll happen, but it seldom ever does. They'll usually stick to the safer confines of the bush during daylight hours, especially in areas of high hunting pressure. Unfortunately, the river was slow moving and deep along this stretch, with quite a steep bank on the far side, and the stag didn't seem to want to cross it at this point. He's probably heading upstream to where he knows there's a suitable crossing place. It's a shame there wasn't an easy way across, because he'd have no doubt come straight over.
I was only joking. When I said we'll roar him out onto the flats, it's the most amazing thing. Middle of the day, 11:30, roar, he seemed to be getting lower, and next thing he sort of goes into a dip, and I thought, oh, he's in that little dip before the grassy bit there, and next thing he goes around the side there, sticking to the bush, and the sandflies are terrible. And then he just starts walking across and blow me down. That was amazing. So hopefully, I tell you, the Grebe River between us and the stag, the Grebe River, he wanted to come across. What? Got a grebe on me. All right. Absolutely fantastic.
we're going to have to walk up the creek and try and find a crossing place because it's all bank along here. So we'll go around the corner and see if there's any decent spot to go over.
Oh yeah, there he is. The moment of truth.
Big stag, isn't it? Oh, there. Oh, so 1, 2, 11, is it?
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He's in 11.
Yeah, 11. He's actually not that old either when you look at his tusks and that. See that? Things there. Not worn down or anything. No staining really. So he's got those 4 up there, so it means that there's possibly a bit of potential around the place, and being quite a young animal, maybe in a year or 2 he would have been just so much better. Anyway, we're pretty happy with you. Yeah, we're quite happy. Yeah.
What size is he?
He's dark. Oh no, he's 90 kilos, isn't he?
Is he?
90 kilos? Is he? 90 kilos?
Gutted.
Gutted, that is. Yeah.
Head off.
Now it's the business end of it, isn't it?
The hard part begins. Alright.
There's been a lot of different methods used for carrying out deer over the years. We've always preferred to use a homemade steel pack frame. It's worked really well and has literally stood up to the weight of tons of prime venison.
How much?
Sky will be 90 to 95 kilo. We were thinking he could have possibly been 100, but I don't think he'll go 100.
However, we were recently informed we've been doing it wrong for all these years. But hey, that's okay. We never said it was the right way, it's just the way we do it. Some guys prefer to use the pole method.
One of those beers. Them beers are looking bloody good at this stage, I tell you that much.
It can work really well as long as there's at least 2 of you. A bit awkward if you're by yourself. This way is more suited for flat and gentle rolling country and is a good way to share the load without the risk of doing yourself a mischief. However, in steep country it can be quite difficult and it's not as easy as it looks.
I tell you what, you want to be real careful climbing up these steep slopes with a deer on your back. Especially if you're by yourself. You don't want to take any risks. It's just not worth it. You don't want to do yourself an injury, I tell you. Just cut it up if you can't get it up.
The peak-out method, as it's commonly referred to, would have to be the most popular, I would imagine. We've at some stage over the years done all of the above. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how you do it. Some people prefer to cut it up in the field, which makes a lot of sense, because it saves carrying out all the excess skin and bones. One thing's for sure, however you do it, you'll earn your dinner at the end of it.
It's a bit further up, I think. Might try and make some ground up. Go a little bit further, bit better position if possible. Keep quiet.
Sounds young. Sounds like a young one.
It's looking down his throat as he's roaring. Yeah, a bit hard to tell, but he's just like this, roaring his head off. So I got 3 shots while he did that, and then he put his head back down and just looked at us. I mean, these stags haven't been touched by humans much. Where we are, the Ureweras, they're hunted really heavily, spotlighted all night by people, and they're really touchy. But some of the stags we're running into are responsive, just beautiful, beautiful creatures. Few and far between, unfortunately. We'd like to see a few more. But it's beautiful. It's only daylight saving time now, or back to normal time I should say. It's about 7:45 in the morning, so we're moving to a new territory, going to check out some new stuff and pick up the old man down there somewhere and move on. So we'll see you on the next bit. When it comes to roaring techniques, there's no hard set rules. So it's a lot of it's just trial and error. So you've got to try something. If you do nothing, then probably nothing will happen at all unless the stag's roaring by himself. So you're better to make some noise. Don't be afraid to make a sound. Don't worry how it sounds if you think, oh, you know, it doesn't sound that good. Mine doesn't sound that good either, but you just got to make something. So we might, for example, go into an area and if there's nothing happening, it's all quiet, think, okay, we'll give a roar and hopefully something will answer. So we'll just give an ordinary sort of a just see what happens. If it's all quiet, you might think, okay, we'll give a bit more, you know, try and work something up a little bit. So you'll give a few more roars. If still nothing, then you might think, okay, we've got to try and stimulate something. So we're going to give a bit of what we call violence. So you do a bit of the old bit of that sort of thing, and you hopefully the stag's thinking, oh, I'm getting a bit agitated of that, so he lets out a roar. And then once he's going, hopefully you can just correspond and keep him going. And you get another occasion where a stag's roaring and you're roaring to him, you start moving closer, next thing he sort of goes quiet and you can't get him to roar again. You think, oh, what do I do now? So what we'll often do is actually keep quiet ourselves, not make a sound, and wait him out, because sometimes they like to know where you are, but once you've stopped, he starts to think, oh, where is he? So he'll let out a roar, and then you can pinpoint him and head for him again. Of course, then you get other situations and a stag's going off his nut. He's really, you know, worked up, And in a case like that, keep them worked up, get them angry. So just bellow at them as much as you can, and even interrupt them, you know, really make them worked up as can be, because the most exciting you can get is when you get them coming in close. So at that stage, hopefully he'll just come in fast, and that's a real buzz. You know, a lot of guys out there, of course, have got all their techniques and they know exactly what they're doing, and it works really well. But with us, if you do what we say, if it doesn't work, don't blame us, because a lot of the time it doesn't work for us either. So there you go.
Just a great bit of country coming up here after that steep bit, so I want you to go quietly. But just as we nose up here, there's some beautiful little posies, so we'll give a few roars and maybe something's lurking. Fair way off. Don't know how far, but we're going to have to check that sucker out.
Sometimes if nothing is roaring, but you know there's a stag in the area, it can pay to find a good spot and sit and wait while giving the odd roar. Occasionally a stag will sneak in for a look without making a sound.
Case of not much warning. There's I think a bigger stag roaring higher up, and we just spotted the hind. Steve just spotted the hind in there, and so give a roar. Next thing there's movement, and it's that smaller stag there, but the stag we're originally after is still roaring back up there, so we'll move on. But sometimes they just can sneak in when you least expect it, so caution, always have a little bit of caution.
When you come across a wallow of this proportion that's recently been in use, you can't help but get enthusiastic, as you know unless he's been disturbed, he won't be far away.
This is a good sized wallow. Stags like to have a bath just like us, but they like to bathe in mud, and they sprinkle it off, and it looks very inviting, and it's quite warm today. But it's great to be in the stag area. Like when you start to see a wallow, that's great. A little swimming mud pool. We swim in hot pools with mud. Some of us, that's colder. There's one over here too. Certain I heard two then. I don't know. No, it wasn't an echo.
When you get that unmistakable whiff of stag, it's a good time to check the wind direction and consistency, then make any necessary alterations with your approach. When the stag takes off, it's often a good idea to immediately blast him with an outburst of roars. This will sometimes confuse the stag, and if you're lucky, he'll stop and give you another opportunity.
That's nearly attack stuff. When animals attack, it's unbelievable. Don't.
Well, that should just about wrap it up, I think. Been a few days of rain, and we thought, oh, what should we do in the meantime while we're waiting? Okay, we'll stack a few stones. And now weather's clearing up a bit. I think we've just got time for an afternoon look. Lovely. One of the most important things during the roar is to get some sound out there. Now, a lot of guys will just use their hands and that can work really well. But for us personally, we like to get a bit more volume. We like to really reach out. So you've got one option here. Now, this is a cheaper version, and that's the ordinary granola bottle. You get it at your local supermarket for $1.50, $2, and cut the end off, empty the solution out, and clean it out, and away you go. And that gives a bit more volume there. But another option, of course, is the cow horn. Now, the only problem with these is they can be a bit hard to get hold of. This one here is very old. It's like 40 years old or something. It was father's years ago. And this gives good volume and, you know, really stretches out there. And it's really good. But there is another recently available option. This is the synthetic hardened plastic trophy horn, available from your local hunting and fishing stores for about $50, and they put out a good volume, good sound, and well designed to fit under your shoulder. Another good option. One thing to keep in mind, especially down south, if you have to cross rivers, keep an eye on the weather, because when it rains they can rise alarmingly fast. What could normally be a pleasant meandering stream can turn into a raging torrent in no time at all, and when they do, don't even attempt to cross them. Even the blue ducks are cautious in water like this. It's a nice bit of clearing through here. From a distance we thought it was just a big swamp. It's all full of toy and stuff. We left the road about half an hour ago. It's actually been raining all morning. Rained all last night. Yesterday we got saturated. And it's of course that hard part, getting all your clothes dry after all that rain. But we're going to head back into these hills over here. And with any luck, try and get one of those big Westland red stags to give a bellow and try and get in close to him. Anyway, we'll move on a bit closer to the hills. In this flat country you often can't hear very far, so we'll get back a bit.
Often this swampy, wet Westland country means deep, slow-moving creeks as well. So what you've got to do is try and look for an old log or some sort of a way across without swimming. Here, I'll show you how deep it is. If the log holds me, I haven't tested it yet. So she's that deep. She's up to there over my head. Always look for the log.
After a couple of hours of not much happening, the clouds opened up again and we almost turned back. Now there's one thing that can instantly change your mind and suddenly perk up your enthusiasm, and we all know what that is. Sure enough, a distant roar. Then, just to make things even better, we spotted the small pork. These are fantastic creatures, the way they silently swoop through the trees and inquisitively watch your every move, probably thinking to himself, what the heck are those clumsy animals? With an average yearly rainfall of around 5 metres, if you head into Westland, be prepared to get wet, because in this area there's two things you can pretty much count on, rain and sandflies. Anyway, it's amazing how fast things can change. Suddenly we were back on track again and things were looking up.
He just came around. He was right here at our scent. We came up here. I mean, brought a lot of stags in, my friends. But that's the most exciting one, I think. He was like about probably 3 meters from me. And he's a beautiful stag, wasn't he? Didn't you just love him? So angry and so worked up. What did you think of that?
One thing we really want to stress is the safety issue. If you can't positively identify your target, just don't take the risk. It's not worth it. What we always say is assume everything is human until proven otherwise. And that applies to sight, sound, colour, movement, whatever. Remember, there's a lot of guys out there with a really good raw on them. So just because it sounds good doesn't mean it's not a person. So just remember, assume everything is human until proven otherwise.
Well, that wraps us up for another year. Now don't forget to get a couple of hundred of these DVDs and send them off to your grandma over in Italy. Anyway, we're out of here. Good luck to you and happy hunting.